The Middle East stands on the brink of chaos. Israel and Arab states are at war, the region is burning, and the world is holding its breath. But all eyes are now on Qatar, a tiny Gulf nation with a powerful voice. At the Gulf Council meeting, Qatar is preparing a response that could shift the balance of this entire war. What will Qatar say, and how will it impact the future of the Middle East? Stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one of the most critical developments in modern Middle Eastern history, the eruption of full-blown war between Israel and multiple Arab states, and the dramatic role Qatar is expected to play at the Gulf Council meeting. The Israel-Arab war has escalated quickly, with heavy fighting spreading across borders. This conflict has already triggered shockwaves through the region, but it is the diplomatic stage that may decide its future. Qatar, known for its delicate balancing act between the West, Arab allies, and groups like Hamas, finds itself at the center of attention. The Gulf Council Summit is being viewed as a decisive platform where Qatar's stance could influence the unity or division of Arab states. Will Qatar align with its Gulf partners in condemning Israel's actions, or will it push for negotiations to prevent further escalation? In this video, we'll dive into the battlefield realities, Qatar's potential response, and the wider implications of the Gulf Council's decision. Let's begin by understanding the scale of this war and why it is already being called the most dangerous Middle East conflict of the century. The war between Israel and Arab states did not come out of nowhere. Tensions had been building for months, with repeated clashes in Gaza, threats from Hezbollah in Lebanon, and border skirmishes with Syria. But what transformed simmering hostility into a regional war was a coordinated response by multiple Arab states to Israeli strikes that crossed red lines. Within days, fighter jets roared across skies, missiles targeted cities, and a flood of propaganda hit Arab media. Israel responded with overwhelming military force, deploying its advanced air defenses, ground operations, and naval strikes. Meanwhile, Arab coalitions, some openly aligned, others indirectly supporting, began mobilizing troops and resources. Civilian areas on both sides have suffered the most, with refugee crises already emerging. The United Nations has called this war a catastrophic escalation, with the potential to drag in even more countries. While the battlefield rages, the political front is equally tense. Every Arab state is being forced to declare its position. Among them, Qatar is under the spotlight because of its unique relationships with Arab neighbors, Iran, the US, and groups operating in Gaza. The Gulf Council meeting is not just about statements, it could define the Arab world's collective response to Israel. Qatar is a small country, but its influence is outsized. Over the last decade, Qatar has built a reputation as a mediator in global conflicts, often acting as the bridge between opposing sides, hosting the Taliban talks, providing humanitarian aid in Gaza, and maintaining open lines with both Washington and Tehran. Qatar has become a diplomatic hub in the Middle East. That's why the Gulf Council is looking at Doha for leadership in this moment of crisis. Unlike Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which have leaned towards stronger military and political opposition to Israel, Qatar has played a more nuanced role. It provides aid to Palestinians while also hosting U.S. military bases. This dual identity allows Qatar to potentially calm the storm, or, if it chooses, escalate the political war against Israel. Analysts say Qatar's decision at the Gulf Council could determine whether Arab unity hardens into military escalation or shifts toward negotiations. Israel, on the other hand, views Qatar with suspicion, accusing it of backing militant groups. For Qatar, the stakes are extremely high. A bold statement could rally Arab nations together, but it could also draw retaliation from Israel or strain ties with Western allies. The Gulf Council, Formerly known as the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC is the official body of 6 Gulf states: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Bahrain. This council is not just a diplomatic forum. In times of crisis, it becomes a stage where collective Arab will is expressed. The upcoming meeting is expected to be one of the most intense in its history. Each member state is arriving with its own agenda. Saudi Arabia is pushing for a united Arab military and political stand against Israel. The UAE, though cautious, wants to show strength without jeopardizing its fragile economic ties. Oman and Kuwait, traditionally more neutral, are urging restraint. Qatar, however, is seen as the swing voice. What it says at this council will either fuel a united Arab response or expose divisions that Israel might exploit. The world's media is already calling it Doha's moment. The Gulf Council's decisions could also shape how the United States, Europe, and other global powers engage with this conflict. With war expanding, every word spoken in this chamber will carry enormous consequences for peace, war, and diplomacy in the Middle East. For Israel, Qatar's position is a matter of both suspicion and strategy. Israeli leaders believe Qatar's financial and political support to Gaza has strengthened groups that Israel considers existential threats. At the same time, Israel knows that Qatar is not just another Arab country. It has deep ties to Washington, and it has often been the go-between for delicate hostage and ceasefire negotiations. That puts Israel in a dilemma. Should it pressure the U.S. to rein in Qatar, or should it quietly allow Doha to act as a mediator? Some in Israel's political circles argue that Qatar is using this war to increase its regional power. Others warn that attacking Qatar diplomatically or militarily would backfire, alienating the Gulf and complicating relations with the U.S. As Israeli airstrikes continue across Arab borders, its leaders are preparing for the possibility that Qatar's speech at the Gulf Council could trigger a larger Arab alliance. Israel's war cabinet is reportedly holding special sessions to monitor Doha's stance, ready to respond with both political messaging and potential military moves. This shows just how central Qatar has become to a war. It is not directly fighting, but deeply influencing from the sidelines. The central question at the Gulf Council is simple: will Arab states unite or remain divided? Historically, Arab nations have often failed to maintain unity in times of crisis. The 1967 and 1973 wars saw initial cooperation, but ended with fractures. The Gulf War in the 1990s revealed competing interests. Today, the Israel-Arab war is once again testing Arab unity. Saudi Arabia and the UAE want stronger confrontation. Kuwait and Oman lean toward diplomacy. Bahrain, closely aligned with Riyadh, is likely to follow Saudi leadership, but Qatar embolden Israel to expand operations. On the other hand, a united stance could pressure Israel, and Qatar faces one of the toughest balancing acts in modern diplomacy. On one side are its Arab brothers, demanding firm resistance to Israel. On the other side are Western allies, especially the United States, which relies on Qatar for military bases and strategic presence in the Gulf. Then there is Iran, a powerful neighbor with which Qatar shares the world's largest natural gas field. Qatar cannot afford to alienate any side completely. This is why Doha often uses careful, deliberate language in its foreign policy. At the Gulf Council, Qatar's representatives are expected to speak in strong terms against Israeli aggression, but stop short of committing to direct military involvement. Instead, they are likely to call for immediate ceasefire talks, humanitarian aid corridors, and regional coordination. This approach could allow Qatar to maintain credibility with Arab states while avoiding direct confrontation with Israel and the West. However, critics say such a middle ground strategy might be seen as weakness. Either way, Qatar's speech will be closely analyzed, word by allies, enemies, and global powers alike. The international community is watching this Gulf Council meeting with extreme interest. The United States, which maintains its largest Middle Eastern air base in Qatar, is pressuring Doha to act responsibly and prevent further escalation. Washington sees Qatar as a crucial partner, but is wary of its ties to groups in Gaza. Europe, divided in its stance on Israel, is looking for Arab unity to guide its own policies. Meanwhile, Russia and China are waiting to see if Arab nations can create a bloc that challenges Western dominance in the region. If Qatar pushes for a hardline response against Israel, Moscow and Beijing may throw their weight behind it, further isolating Washington. On the humanitarian front, the United Nations and aid agencies are pleading for Gulf states, especially Qatar, to prioritize humanitarian relief. With thousands displaced, hospitals overwhelmed, and food shortages looming, global pressure is mounting for the Gulf Council to go beyond politics and take concrete action to save lives. The global spotlight has never been so sharply focused on such a small nation. Qatar's role could make it either a peacemaker or a trigger for further escalation. What are the possible outcomes of Qatar's response at the Gulf Council? Analysts outline three scenarios. First, Qatar fully aligns with Arab hardliners like Saudi Arabia, paving the way for a united Arab military and political front. This would escalate the war dramatically, drawing in more forces and possibly even external powers. Second, Qatar takes a cautious middle path, condemning Israel but emphasizing diplomacy and humanitarian action. This would reduce immediate escalation but might frustrate Arab partners seeking strong retaliation. Third, Qatar surprises everyone with a bold peace initiative, offering to host talks and positioning itself as the main mediator. Such a move could either cool tensions or backfire if seen as weakness. Each path carries enormous risks. The first could unleash chaos, the second could prolong the stalemate, and the third could make or break Qatar's reputation as a regional leader. In all cases, the Gulf Council meeting is a turning point, and Qatar's decision will echo across the Arab world and beyond. As we reach the end of this analysis, one thing is clear: the Israel-Arab war has pushed the Middle East into one of its most dangerous moments in decades. Battles rage on the ground, but in the halls of diplomacy, Qatar is preparing to make its move at the Gulf Council. Its words, its stance, and its choices could change the trajectory of this conflict. Will Doha unite the Arab world in defiance of Israel? Will it push for negotiations and humanitarian relief? Or will it walk a fine line, trying to please everyone but risking criticism from all sides? The coming days will provide the answers, and the world is watching. Thank you for staying with us through this deep dive.